Greetings, sir and sirettes, and welcome back to Terratech with me, Lathrix, and of course, welcome back to the design we were building in the previous video, which so far hasn't really got a major use. But today, hopefully, we can fix that. After reading all the comments, it seems like the idea of a drone carrier, a two-part vehicle, is certainly the most popular, and honestly, I do agree, although I'm going to be putting a little bit of a twist on it. Now, as we all know, the anchor system in this game is really, really powerful. If you anchor a vehicle, suddenly you can charge up your power as long as it's daytime, and you become nigh unstoppable. The problem with the anchoring system is, A, it's overpowered, and B, you can't anchor if there's an enemy nearby, so you have to just kind of hunker down and hope the enemies head towards you, or perhaps if enemies are spawning around you, you can quickly anchor. Well, what if we use the drone as a manual drone to draw enemies towards this sort of bastion, so the enemies will follow the drone and then be absolutely mowed down by this sort of immovable object. Now, before we continue, I should just quickly mention I will not be using the explosive bolts in this design, and the only reason why I'm bringing this up is because they are recommended to me constantly, and I certainly understand why. In the recent turret design, I could have used explosive bolts, so when we spawn in the design, they're both spawning together, you simply explode the bolt, and then the top section would have slotted in correctly. That way, it takes seconds to place down the turret, rather than me having to sort of float in the top section and hope it's all aligned. But with this design, I'm going to be having both of the techs completely separate from the start, and then we're simply going to be holding them together using the experimental items here, because I just feel like that's going to be a lot easier since you can't actually reattach items using the bolts or anything. This is the only real way to reconnect techs. So the question is, how would the Bastion drag along the drone? And the reason why you want the Bastion out and about a long time is because it has so much battery capacity, it will take a long time to charge up anyway, and you want it to be able to get into the fight at full battery power. So I don't want to simply use the drone, fly off to the next target, and then spawn in the bottom section, because it'll take forever to charge up. And honestly, I'm kind of sick of flying everywhere at the moment. The first way we can lock in the drone into the Bastion is something like this. Now, the problem with this is we can move around quite freely, which is really quite annoying, but if we build up this correctly, once we know the overall drone shape, we can really stop the movement. In fact, yeah, right now I'm completely stuck. Oh, but let's make sure we don't glitch it like that. So that's way number one. Way number two. Once again, quite free to move, but this would probably be a little bit easier to build around, though. It's less free than the previous version. And that's the axle. There is also the hook, but I really don't like using the hooks. After a lot of experience in the past, I absolutely hate using them. Now, the reason why we haven't used all of these in the past, like, for instance, on the defense turret we very recently built, is purely because you can't craft experimental items in the campaign, which means you're at the whim of fate if you actually get them in chest drops, which can be really annoying. Now, you can buy them from trade stations, but since we're not buying blocks in this game, you can see why it's an issue. So we need very limited amounts. So for the defense turret, which we would need 4 sets of anything we use, it would just have taken so long to get all the items required. In fact, that goes for anything in experimental. I am tempted by this. Ooh, actually, I've just thought of a really easy way to use this. Perfect. We can't move at all. So what this is a small bearing here, sorry, a small axle, and then we have a small bearing attached to our craft. Now, it's a little bit glitchy, but we can work around that as we build it. And there are plenty of other things we could do as well, but this seems pretty perfect. There is no way I can move here, but we are completely attached. Now, this may glitch out a little bit because of the shape of this. Don't worry, it won't happen on the drone. Well, it shakes about a bit, but no major issue. Ah, that's what you ran over. Excuse me. So then all we need to do to release this is just go into this, take away this, place it on the side, and then once again we are free to move. Then we land, we reattach this, and problem solved. Okay, I think that's the way we're going to go about this. So then next up, let's just build our drone. Okay, so to build the drone, I'm going to build it whilst we're still attached to the bottom section. So I would love to use either the medium rotor or the small rotor, since I just never get to use these. We don't want it to be too big, but we do want it to have some power, so it has some shielding and some repair capability. That way we can take charge from the Bastion as well. So the Bastion is also a mobile charging port for the drone. And then maybe we'll give it very minimalistic weapons. Doesn't need to be anything over the top, just something to get the enemy's attention. One thing to note is that what we could do is use an AI module and then turn the drone into an automatic defender. So this won't be something capable of flight, but will most likely be something which can hover, and then we can send out, it will defend us, and then once the fight is done, just make sure it has at least one manual cab, and we can simply place it back onto the carrier. That sounds really fun, and I feel like I'll make a dedicated vehicle to having multiple drones in the future, if that's something you want to see. If we do something like this, what we can do is have very obvious connection points. Then we can build something around these, which will then hold it in place. That seems like a pretty good idea, actually. So let's swap out these two. Instead, add these. Then add at least 2 regular blocks to each. That way, we can build up the base, so this thing has a very obvious place to land, and then it doesn't shake around all the sodding time. This is going to be a tiny little drone, which is rare for me. I tend to build things too big, so this will be nice. If I actually get this to be a reasonable size, it's going to be a great day of success for the Lathrixian Legion. I was meant to say Lathrix then. I'm not even speaking in a third person anymore. No, wait, since that would include me, that's still third person, right? Even though it's a group of people with me as an included person? I don't know, me no good at words, build! So one paint scheme is the base, one paint scheme is the drone. So on the upside with this, it's incredibly stable, it doesn't rock all that much, which is really good because normally, when you have 2 parts attached like this and actually touching, it causes all sorts of physics problems, but this seems to really work. 2 downsides. Number 1, it looks terrible. Number 2, it's gonna be so difficult to land so specifically, so this is a no, because I can see myself getting really annoyed trying to land the drone again. How about a bit less specific, so just this middle section is still there? I mean, it does kind of look like a lock. Curious. So one issue I had instantly there is that I couldn't take off. Purely because of the friction, it was just not allowing it to happen. Now, to be honest, this is quite a weak rotor, but that's kind of how I want it as well. Definitely not going to work out. Okay, so we're going to have to use either multiple rotors or the medium. And we're going to have to be very careful with just how tightly we hold on to this thing. On the upside, reattaching is actually really easy, so that's good. Well, the prototype works. Not great, but it works. Needs to be way more balanced, though. Since it would be nice if this thing could completely stop in the air, but as it is right now, that's never going to happen. Oh, this thing is adorable. How do I keep on misplacing you? Stop, no, no, look at me. You've done something wrong. There we go. Very mildly out of balance now, but it can turn faster. Oh, I need to get used to these rotors again. And now we can also strafe, now that things are a bit more balanced. Lovely, that's going to make life so much easier. Just line up correctly, complete stop, and then we let it fall to the ground. Using these rotors is very difficult when you're not used to them. They're not difficult to use, it's just a bit of practice is needed. There we are. And then build mode as soon as we land on the drone. On the tech. We are the drone. Perfect. Okay, that's actually working out really well. Just a few more adjustments to it, and then I think it's going to be able to do its job decently. Just need to make sure the main tech can also fight back correctly, and right now it's actually able to turn, since I've used one of the AI sentries for its, what's it called? Its anchor point. Because A, it needed an AI, and B, I didn't like using the sky anchors, it looked weird. So one thing I'm very quickly learning is that enemies are very fickle when it comes to following you, and you cannot go very quickly at all. I was thinking this drone is far too slow, but actually, it's kind of perfect. And this is us moving slower than it can go. I had to purposefully go slower there. There we are. But now our tech absolutely devours them. Lovely. And there we are. Now we simply move back to the original position and re-add the axle. Now the problem is, how I've built this, I can't actually see inside anymore, so I can't place the axle correctly. So I need to remove some blocks at the back or something so I can actually reattach things, because right now it's now way more difficult. Nope, not quite. See, without being able to see what I'm doing, it's really, really difficult. There's something to note. It's way easier to add the ring back than to add the axle, and that actually makes complete sense. So having the axle this way around might be better overall. Yeah, if we build up here and here, so it looks like it's meant to be on the back like this, or we just move it all forward, I think that'll work out a lot better. This is a very difficult way to use a drone, but I think it's really fun. It's just, until everything is perfect, it's so awkward. Yeah, this is way, way easier. There we go, and reattached. Oops. Note to self though, when in build mode you can still easily break the connections. When you're out of build mode, nice and secure, but when in build mode, once you're connected, remove build mode. And there we are. Wow, that fits really well. I am happy about that. It's rare that I'm happy about things. And then if I want to take off, remove that, and we're off. And just reattach it so it's with us, and then once we go back to the drone, the tech, I will start calling them correct names, I promise. We can build mode just before we land, so it doesn't really matter how fast we're landing, and once again, we're connected. Yep, that is so much easier. Seems to shake a bit less as well when it's this way around, which is nice. Oh, it's so cute! The drone now, I would say, is functionally complete, and I actually really like how it looks. It looks stupid and bulky, but adorable, and I absolutely, well, adore that. Now, when it comes to the Bastion, the bottom section, which still needs a name, so far I've seen a lot of really good name suggestions. I will be choosing one before I build it in the campaign. We need to make sure it can do its job correctly, and that is survive a lot of enemy fire, and just sit here. Just sit here and mow down everything all by itself. And for the most part, I think it's going to do okay. I think it needs a little bit more weaponry on the back, and I think it definitely needs some more solar panels. So what I'm going to do is just remove the drone for now, put this in build mode, and just add loads of stuff to the bottom of it. Nice and simple. First things first, now we can't move whilst we're anchored, which is really nice, because it looked really weird with this thing kind of sliding around to attack the enemy. Note to self, when in build mode, maybe it's best to detach things which are attached to you. I had no idea how hollow this thing was, so I've managed to add a grand total of 12 of the GSO solar generators, and all I've had to do is lose 4 of the Hawkeye batteries, although I then re-added 2 of the GSO small batteries, because the space was just available. This means that we can generate a lot more power during the daytime, and our battery is not that affected. Although I would like to re-add them somewhere, so let's have a look, see if we can find some more space. I mean, looking in there, I can already see space, but this area is quite vulnerable. I don't really want to add batteries all at the front. Although, its shielding is really good at the front, so I don't know. Well, here goes the test. Yep, there we are. It's burning the wood chunk, and it's also burning the plumbite. Now here's the question. Will it also burn through components? If it does, then that's just awesome, and we need to build with this eventually. No, it won't. It also doesn't work when you're not anchored. Yeah, that's annoying. So I think it was probably for the best that we just went with the mobile furnaces so we could only burn down regular fuel sources, but still. If that was mobile, it would be amazing though, since we could just harvest any resource and get some energy, but with that, we'd have to harvest and then sit still, and that's just a bit annoying. Just added loads of weak weapons here and there just to make sure we have complete coverage, and I think with that, we should be able to fight off enemies in every direction. The back section is still definitely the weakest, though. So we can't place anything here, otherwise the drone's going to be really annoying to use, otherwise I'll just do this. So what can we do, really? Just more machine guns, I suppose. Easy to place. They do terrible damage, really, but you can place so many of them, it's okay. And once again, using weaker weapons, which I don't normally use, is kind of the theme of this particular playthrough, so I think that is good to go as well. I hate these two solar panels, though. That looks so awful. You know what? I just can't. I just can't. Well, this is going to be incredibly vulnerable, but let's do this. Because who needs their Bastion type of vehicle to be, you know, anything but vulnerable? I think that's good to go for now. Remember, we can always make changes when it's in the campaign, but I think as a base vehicle, this is going to be very hard to kill. Just been driving around over a few hills and just around the flat areas, and it seems like the drone is completely stable when it's attached, which is really, really great. And even if it wasn't, we could always build other things to hold it in place when it's attached. But with that, I'm afraid I'm all out of time for today's episode. If you have enjoyed, then of course, likes, favourite, shares, comments, all that good stuff, helps out me, helps out the channel, and most importantly, shows that Terratech is a series you wish to see continued in the future. In the next episode, we either build this in the campaign, which is going to be an absolute nightmare, or we're going to be building a little AI drone to follow us along. So a similar kind of concept, but rather than a manual drone, we have one which we can detach and then send against the enemy. Although, honestly, I think it would be best if we built a specific drone carrier build to do that. So we have several drones all attached to the main body, and then we release them and they attack the enemy. And maybe that could even use... where are you? The explosive bolts. Because in that case, the drones themselves are going to be attached and have their own batteries, then you can use the explosive bolts, the drones go out, they attack the enemy, and then once the fight is over, you simply take away all the drones and then respawn the main craft. It would be a lot easier. In this case, it's definitely best to have these two separate, but with multiple of them, reattaching them would be an absolute nightmare. And it would be cool to simply press the button and then release them all. Yeah, I think that's probably going to be the next big build. But for now, all done. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.